Now, I know what you're thinking, Need for Speed Most Wanted is a great game, and yes, it is, I agree, but today we are actually talking about Need for Speed Most Wanted 510 for the PSP. So let's cut right to it. Welcome to the Worst Racing Games. This is a series where you guys have recommended different racing games for me to rank as the worst racing games of all time. So, seeing as this is the first episode, let me just quickly introduce the different tiers in this ranking. At the very bottom, we have Pure Evil, which is saved for the worst of the worst. Next up, we have the so bad that it's actually kind of good category. Games that are still awful, but because they're so bad, they have a certain charm that redeems them a little bit. In the middle, we just have Rubbish. There's nothing great about it. It's just there. Then we have Meh. There might be some redeeming qualities, but it's still kind of naff. And at the top, we have Actually Not That Bad, which is reserved for the games that you guys have recommended that personally I don't agree with being the worst racing games. If you guys have a game you want to recommend for this series, put it in the comments down below, or come join my Discord server, which is in the description below, and let me know there as well. So now we got all the exposition out the way, welcome to Need for Speed Most Wanted 510. This was developed by Team Fusion, published by EA, and released across November and December of 2005, depending on the region of the world you lived in. The game would eventually be backwards compatible via the PlayStation Vita as well. So, Most Wanted 510 is the PSP spin-off of the 2005 Need for Speed Most Wanted. The general consensus of Most Wanted in both its console and handheld spin-offs is that you are climbing the Most Wanted list, or the Blacklist. There are 15 races, you have to gain notoriety to be able to challenge each of these races as you progress through the game. 510 still has this, but without the open world features. So in 510 instead, you basically take on about 4 different races or time trials before you can challenge each racer on the Blacklist. Now, the members of the Blacklist and the cars they drive actually differ from the home console version. Now, of course, we couldn't have a game called Most Wanted or Most Wanted 510 without the police. And oh boy, they are certainly in this game, but we'll come back to that later. So the game starts off by giving you 3 different car choices. You have the Chevrolet Cobalt SS, the Mazda 3, and the Volkswagen Golf GTI, and honestly, this isn't a bad starting lineup of cars. So the first 45 minutes to an hour of Most Wanted are pretty slow, to be honest with you, because you don't have any nitrous, you're just in one of the 3 base cars, and you're just doing some fairly standard races. Nothing too good, nothing too bad, just kinda harmless. However, within these 45 minutes to an hour, you quickly learn that none of the cars in this game handle particularly well. In fact, I would liken my experience to that of an ice rink. You can slide your car about everywhere, and the physics just don't really work either, so there's multiple times where I've tapped a wall of the back of the car and flipped up into the air about 15 times, or just spun out, but that's equally as infuriating because it can take so long to get back up to speed.
No! No! I destroyed the cow! No!
Now, one could argue this was a skill issue, and no doubt I'm not the best player of all time, I'm certainly not the best at driving games, but there were many occasions that were definitely not my fault, and the game just punished me for no reason whatsoever. So yeah, the overall handling in this game just isn't very good, and unfortunately, when you're a racing game, that's like the main thing you need to get right. Now, originally I did think, oh, maybe it's just the base car, it's unupgraded, it's just a Golf, I'm sure it will get better as I upgrade the car or get different ones, but I've applied many upgrades, and also made the car pink, and it still felt the same. And later on I moved on to the Mazda RX-8, and it was a very similar situation. It just felt very slippery. Now, if you've made it this far into the video, just please comment pink Golf down below. And if you haven't done so already, while you're at it, hit that subscribe button. Now that we've got the handling and overall driving out the way, let's talk about some more design aspects. So, there are only 16 cars in this game. Although there aren't many, it's a fairly decent lineup of street racing cars such as the Subaru Impreza, the Mitsubishi Eclipse, and later on the Ford GT and the Porsche Carrera GT. Whilst there may not be many cars, the game shines best with its customization features. If you played Need for Speed Underground or Underground 2, then the customization in this game will feel very familiar and right at home to you. In fact, the customization is definitely my favourite aspect of this game. There are so many different options you can choose for your cars. Body kits, spoilers, hoods, tinted windows, so on and so forth, it's all here. And as well as this, you have the performance upgrades where you can upgrade the engine, the turbo, the suspension, and eventually nitrous as well. And you can actually feel the difference as it goes on, but primarily in speed rather than handling. I guess this is called Need for Speed, not Need for turning round corners safely. Now, whilst the cars and customization all sound nice, what about the tracks you're actually driving them on? Now, as I previously mentioned, Most Wanted 510 ditches the free roam capabilities, obviously because it's on a PSP, so now we've just got some tracks instead. And this is another feature that really lets the game down. The tracks are just so boring. Aesthetically, they all pretty much look the same. There's not much variety. There's a couple of somewhat nice shortcuts, but there's no reward in finding them because they're so obviously shown anyway. And a lot of the time these tracks do just wind up being a little bit unfair, with some unnecessarily sharp turns, and as you turn these corners, there will be police barricades in a place you could possibly never predict. Again, we will come back to the police because that's a whole other rabbit hole for this game. The other problem with some of these tracks is that some are just really unnecessarily long. Being a long track isn't necessarily a problem if the track you are playing is actually fun, or at least visually entertaining, but the Most Wanted 510 tracks are neither visually entertaining or fun. And some of these races can go on for 3 or 4 laps, which ends up taking sometimes up to about 10 minutes, which, in your head whilst playing, feels a lot longer than 10 minutes. Don't get me wrong, it's not all bad though. There's a pretty decent soundtrack with some good licensed music from Disturbed, Avenged Sevenfold. It very much so has the charm and aesthetic of a 2000s EA game. And as well as this, the actual car models look surprisingly good for the PSP. They are incredibly reflective, sometimes to a point where it's actually kind of jarring to look at and you can see all the road markings within your car, but the actual models themselves look pretty good. Anyway, now it's time to talk about probably the worst aspect of Most Wanted 510, and that is the cops. The feds, the fuzz, whatever, they are an absolute pain in the backside in this game. Getting chased by the cops in video games tends to be a stressful experience, but it can also be quite an entertaining one. For example, in GTA 5, the cops are relentless, but it's also hilarious. And honestly, in other Need for Speed games, the cops can also be hilarious and relentless. Do they protect the citizens? No, they just crash through them. But in this game, they do that, but in a much more annoying way. No matter how good or bad the cop car that's chasing you looks in this game, it is basically a rocket ship. Thanks to rubber banding, no matter how far back the cops will fall, they'll suddenly pull up to about 250 miles an hour and catch straight back up to you and continue to ram you into corners. It's not like Burnout where you can ram back and crash them, it's not like GTA when you can ram back and crash them. 95% of the time, if you try and crash into the cops to stop them from chasing you, you're just going to crash yourself and then get busted. There's literally nothing you can do. And the worst part about these cops is that they still chase you even on time trials. But for whatever reason, they don't chase you when you go into the head-to-head races, even though they're actually quite easy. The AI for the police, and as well as the racers in this game, can be anything from incredibly stupid to really smart. 95% stupid, 5% smart. Sometimes the police will pull the most miraculous maneuver to dodge oncoming traffic and ram into you, and other times they genuinely just drive into their own barricades and there's never any in between. The issue with these cops is that they don't make the chases feel exciting, they don't make it feel challenging, they just make it feel unfair. As I mentioned on the track design, sometimes they put police barricades in places you wouldn't expect, but on the plus side, at least with that, the tracks are repeated so much and they're always in the same place, you can just learn where you need to dodge, but the actual cop drivers themselves are just unnecessarily over the top. which is a shame because other than that, the other complaints I've had with this game were relatively minor things that I could get over and still kind of enjoy the game with, but the police, the further into the game you go, really ruin the experience. As I mentioned before, 510 has a fairly slow first hour, so not only does the game not grab my attention in the first hour, but after I've put all that effort in, it continues to bash me and make my experience worse as I put more time into the game. Why have you done this? I should mention there is one cool thing that 510 does do with the police in this game, and that is allowing you to play as them in one specific game mode, allowing you to take down other street racers. A welcome addition and a cool inclusion, but definitely not enough to forgive them for all the struggle they've put me through my main playthrough. Now, interestingly enough, the Metacritic score for this game, specifically the PSP version, is 72 out of 100, which is actually pretty decent, and is certainly one of the highest scores for a game that we'll be looking at in this series. Review scores vary from as high as the 90s to as low as 50, citing issues with the car physics and the police, as I have mentioned previously. The user score is also similarly divisive, with a 7.4 out of 10, with some scores as low as 0 and some as high as 10. Overall, this game just has one too many problems to make it a recommendable game. The bad does sadly outweigh the good in this game. Now, this will be our first ever ranking for this series, and for Need for Speed Most Wanted 510, I think this deserves a spot in the meh tier. It does have some pretty nice features with some good customization, nice visuals, and nice audio. It's let down by ridiculous police AI and some really stupid handling. There are certainly worse racing games out there, and there are definitely worse racing games on the PSP. So that takes us to the end of this episode of the worst racing game. What do you guys think of Most Wanted 510? Did you enjoy it? Would you have ranked it differently? Please let me know in the comments down below. And as I mentioned previously, if you have a suggestion, just let me know, either through the comments or through Discord. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, and if you haven't done so already, subscribe and tap that bell for notifications, and I will see you in my next video.